I've had this urge, it's not an addiction, I guess more of a craving to play an MMO again, namely Warcraft. I suppose it's all the OnlyFans content that's going around at the moment. Generally, I get these urges to pick up Warcraft again. It sounds like some sort of addiction that I need to say shit every now and then, but it's not. I just do miss playing them. MMOs feel like such a time sink. It wasn't so bad when I was in my late teens because all I had was time. I didn't have any real responsibilities other than a part-time job and studying, and I didn't really study much. My first encounter with an MMO was City of Heroes. I somehow ended up in the open beta, and honestly, I felt like it was the best thing I'd ever played. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that there were so many people around me all playing the game at the same time. I could talk to them, group up with them, and we could all do content together as well. I wasn't particularly social growing up. I mean, I'd go play outside with friends, but at this point in my life, video games were far more interesting to me than doing hood rat stuff with my mates. In some ways, MMOs let me play video games and be social, while being unsocial all at the same time. Eventually the open beta would finish, and I would be left with no MMOs. At the time I had no income, so would pretty much have to wait until I was old enough to get a part-time job so I could earn money to play an MMO. One of the first things I bought when I got paid was City of Heroes and a 30-day time card. It was a simpler time. Although I love City of Heroes, its community and character creator, I'd never level a character to the level cap. I'm not sure why though, I guess the game just felt like an endless grind at times. World of Warcraft would be different though, and I spend a lot of time playing it. I never hit level cap in vanilla, but I did in the Burning Crusade. I didn't really have any friends that played World of Warcraft other than the ones I'd found in game. Warcraft was so popular at the time though, you'd just meet people in real life who were also playing Warcraft. It was a bit of a shame, because at the time, they hadn't implemented cross-realm play, so you couldn't always play with these people, unless you just rolled a new character on their realm. I would always go back to Warcraft now and then, assuming that every time I could would be the last time, but it never seems to be. I think this, right now, is the longest time I've gone without playing World of Warcraft. God, it started to sound like an addiction. I think what really drew me to the endgame for World of Warcraft was working to a common goal with a bunch of other people. I remember Karasan was the first raid that I'd ever done. I had felt this purpose in prepping for a raid. It gave me a goal as a generally unfocused young man. I spent time farming materials to make sure I wasn't lagging behind the rest of the group, and I'd help other people prep for it as well. I knew that being a DPS meant I could easily be replaced. I'd eventually roll a Holy Paladin to solve that problem. I spent time studying strategies for bosses. I was an awful student for my last year of university, so studying was almost a foreign concept to me. I suppose studying is easier when you actually enjoy the subject matter. I love the idea of working with this group of people to find this common goal. It's something I'd never really found in any other game before. It was almost this weird sense of belonging with this other bunch of misfits who were equally unfocused and had now become focused due to this common goal we were trying to fulfill. The community aspect of MMOs is always something that I've loved, but I think the group finder eventually changed that in Warcraft. I remember when it got introduced I thought it'd be amazing. You'd get these quick groups. It made things so much easier to be able to grind out badges. What I didn't realise at the time is what we would be losing. It would start to erode one of my favourite aspects of the game, and that was the social aspect of it. It does sound inconvenient, but I quite enjoyed standing around trying to grab a bunch of people to run a dungeon. Sure, it'd take a while, but you'd chat. You'd travel to the dungeon, maybe you'd help someone find the entrance because they were new to the dungeon, and if they were decent you'd add them to your friends list and you'd try and group up again. For the dungeon finder, it felt like people are there just to run the dungeon and get out. It was so rare if people would just leave a message in the group or even say hello back to you. If you failed, people would just leave and then they'd re-queue again. There was no patience for people who didn't know how to run the dungeon, so it was unlikely that anybody in that group finder would be willing to try and run you through that dungeon and provide guidance to less experienced players within that group. God forbid you were a new tank or healer trying to run Dungeon Finder. And there's generally always a shortage of those roles because they're leaned on so heavily. Just be nicer to your tank or healer. We need more of them. Despite me dogging on Dungeon Finder, I understand the intrinsic value that Group Finder has brought, and one of its main selling points is the reasons that I'm no longer playing MMOs, and it's time. I imagine a lot of the people that started playing Warcraft around the same time I did are in similar stages of their life. They're starting families, they have jobs, they have social commitments, they have other hobbies. You ultimately have to choose what you're going to dedicate your time to. When you choose to do something, you're also choosing not to do something else. For me, MMOs have always been this massive time sink. I always felt pressured to play them, and if I was paying a monthly subscription, if I wasn't playing them, then I was wasting money. So when I subscribe, it's often the only thing that I play. Keeping that in mind, MMOs with a free-to-play model and a cash shop might be better for me at this stage in my life, mainly because I don't have to feel like I'm committed to paying a monthly subscription and having to play that game while I'm paying for the subscription. I mentioned at the start of the video that I always go back to WoW. I don't know if I'm at a point in my life where I can dedicate so much time to an MMO. I am playing the open beta for monsterhunterwilds right now. I spent a lot of time in World and people do consider it an MMO. I think it's the grind that I'm drawn to when it comes to Monster Hunter, and it's not the community. Wilds does seem less of a time sink than an MMO does. I'm unsure though. The frame rate just seems awful on the PC at the moment and I'm struggling to get over 60 frames whenever playing on low or medium settings. I'm really hoping they'll optimise it for launch. I suppose worst case scenario, I can always just pick it up on the PS5. Anyways, if you've got this far, thanks for listening to me nattering. I just wanted to get my thoughts out. I'm curious to know if anybody else is feeling similar about MMOs, so if you do, just feel free to let me know in the comments. Take care, and catch you later.